4th of July is a uniquely American holiday, and it isn't just patriotism that spurs people on to celebrate, it's the good weather. Hello, my name is Philip Scorza, and I would like to welcome you to our show, Points of Interest. In the old days, because the 4th of July fell in the middle of summer, it, more than any other holiday, was cause to celebrate. From miles around, from the farthest canyons, upriver and downriver, the people who lived on ranches came to town. They would see old friends, they would meet new friends, they would gossip, they would just revel in community. And Newhall in the Santa Clarita Valley was no exception. Newhall's first 4th of July parade was organized as Old Timers Day. Some of the valley's earliest citizens got together to meet and have their picture taken. Everyone had such a great time that they decided to do it again the next year, and that's how the 4th of July parades began. The parade ran down San Fernando Road, it was called Spruce Street in those days, and it ended right here at the brand new Newhall Elementary School. A photographer assembled the entire town and took their picture. We're here in front of the Newhall Elementary School on Walnut Street, and the reason we're here is because during the 1930s, the parades, the 4th of July parades, used to end right here at the Newhall Elementary School. I'm with my old friend Leon Warden. Leon, how are you?
Good. How are you, Phil?
Fine, thank you. It's nice to see you. Thanks for coming out.
Well, thanks for having me.
Now, you wrote an interesting column recently about 4th of Julys and the history of 4th of Julys, and you said something in there about the fact that in 1932, the tradition of 4th of July parades in Newhall started. Is that right?
Well, right. The parade has been running every year since 1932, with the exception of a couple of the war years. Mm-hmm. Well, in 1932, the tradition started when people like A.B. Perkins and Fred Lampkin put together the first parade. It was sponsored at that time by the Kiwanis Club, later taken over by American Legion Post 507. The parade was really just the beginning of the day's festivities, because hundreds and hundreds of people from all around, from all the ranches around the valley, would come in on that day, and it was, you know, they didn't make it into town on a daily basis, so this was really quite an experience, quite an event. And the parade was, you know, the day started with the parade, and then later on, after the parade, the carnival atmosphere was taken up here at Newhall Park. After the parade, everybody came over here to the park at Newhall School, and it was a big carnival atmosphere. There were barbecues. One of the big draws was political speeches, or patriotic speeches as they called them. For whatever reason, people like to come and hear the politicians give talks. It was after lunch, the day progressed with greased pig contests. People would chase a greased pig around the park. Greased pole contests. The big prize was a $2.50 cash prize at the time in 1932. There was an old timers reunion every year where people gathered together to take photographs in front of the Newhall School. The festivities would last until sundown. They'd play baseball and all sorts of other games in the park, and it was really an all-day affair.
And interestingly enough, we do something like that today. We, of course, have combined our Frontier Days with our 4th of July parade now, and so we start off with the parade. We still have the parties and the games afterwards. Of course, there's, you know, thousands of more faces in this community now than there were back then, and we don't know each other like they did back then. But similar events, right?
Well, the games people play in the park are a little bit different from the way they were back then, but not a whole lot. You know, the city still sponsors. The city now sponsors the games over at the other Newhall Park, right? With, you know, kids games after the parade, and then now the Chamber of Commerce has moved Frontier Days to the 4th of July weekend. So now, instead of just being an all-day affair, it's an all-day and weekend affair.
All-day and weekend affair, right. Well, Leon, I'd like to thank you for joining me today here at the Newhall Elementary School. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Phil, and look forward to seeing you at the next 4th of July parade.
That's right. We're in the Happy Valley subdivision of Newhall, not too far from downtown Newhall, and we're at the home of my old friend Tom Frew. Tom and I served together on the board of directors of the Historical Society. And Tom has agreed to come along with us today and to share some of his 4th of July experiences growing up here in Newhall. So I thought we'd just knock on the door and see if Tom's home. I hope he is. Hello? Oh, hi. Tom, how are you?
Good, Phil. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I brought my audience along with us, and I thought maybe
Good.
if you would share some of your 4th of July experiences growing up here in Newhall with us.
Good.
And I have some photographs that I brought along from Jerry Reynolds' collection, and I know you have some wonderful photographs here.
Mm-hmm.
So can we come into
Sure.
your home?
Come right on in.
Come on in. Well, we're in Tom's lovely home here, and Tom, tell me something now. Tell us a little bit about the 4th of July celebrations when you were a young man growing up here in Newhall.
Well, the 4th of July celebration was always the highlight of the year. They had it wasn't really a beauty contest. The girls sold tickets for 10 cents apiece.
Oh, and what did you get for your dime?
For your dime, you got one vote.
Oh,
That's all you got. And then they finally decided, I believe, to stop that because suddenly there were people around that had more money, and they were basically controlling the contest.
Right.
The parade, of course, was always the big deal of the year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nobody would miss the parade, ever, ever. The parade started at Hart Park, or I shouldn't say at Hart Park, I should say at the juncture right in front of Hart Park.
Mm-hmm.
They had the equestrian units on the upper edge of the park where our Heritage Village is now.
Right.
The marching units were on the grass in the park, so it was nice and cool. And the floats and the automotive entries were along Newhall Avenue and going up Market Street.
Now, Mr. Hart, of course, was alive at this time, right? This was back in the 1930s, right?
No, this would have been in the late 30s, but he didn't participate. I guess they probably didn't start using the property at the park until later,
Mm-hmm.
because the parade then, I believe, lined up only on Newhall Avenue, and you came up Newhall Avenue and then down Spruce Street or San Fernando Road.
Did he ever participate in any of the parades that you can recall?
Not that I ever remember. No, he was more recluse.
Okay.
I guess he occasionally had friends from the movie group, and there were a few people here in town that visited with him occasionally, but not that often.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, very, very much by himself.
Did you ever meet him?
When I was working in the old Newhall Pharmacy at the Fountain when I was in high school, he came in one day and sat down at the Fountain and ordered a drink. And, of course, the owner of the store rushed over to him, being Mr. Local Celebrity, and said, "Hi, Bill, how do you feel today?" And Bill said, "I feel like hell."
Well, that's why he needed a drink.
Nothing beyond Coca-Cola or root beer.
All right, so we know you grew up here in Newhall, and you experienced an awful lot of the 4th of July parades. You told me that in the early days, the 4th of July parades started off as a homecoming for the old-timers of Newhall. Is that right?
The parade was part of the homecoming celebration, but people who had lived in Newhall and who had since moved away would come back on 4th of July for the celebration. Mm-hmm. And I do have a couple pictures of that we'll have to look at.
Yeah, I know some of the old-timers came back and got in some of those pictures.
And many of the old-timers dressed in costumes, so.
Ah, okay, all right. Did you ever ride a horse or do anything in the parade? Were you on the floats or anything like that?
I participated as a rider on the floats for a number of years. Okay. One year was the Eastern Star float, and another year was the Newhall Women's Club float. Mm-hmm. They always needed a bunch of little kids, and I just happened to be the right age at the time.
Did your father's business have a float?
In later years, yes, we began entering floats in the parade, and fortunately enough, we're always awarded at least a first class in our division trophy. So we participated for a long time, but the parade was getting a little too commercial, mm-hmm. and then I sold the business, and so there was no reason to enter the parade anymore.
Well, I know you've got a lot of photographs to share with us, and I have brought some of Jerry Reynolds' photographs from years back in the 1930s, the 4th of July parade. So shall we take a look at some of the photographs?
Well, the picture you're looking at now is the 1934 4th of July parade, It was taken on the property at the time, which was completely vacant, straight across from the Newhall School on Walnut Street, basically right across from the auditorium. You see the row of trees along the back. Those trees are the locust trees that are along the elementary school playground. 1934 was my first participation in the parade on the Eastern Star Float. My dad happened to be the Grand Marshal that year. He's under that sign you're looking at of the, in front of the sign with a top hat on. At each of the parades they had a photographer, and the photographer came and took these long panorama pictures so that he could have a picture of everybody in the parade. This is the 1936 4th of July parade. Again, the pictures were taken across the street from the Newhall Elementary School, and you can see the trees of the elementary school in a row along the back side there. The parades then were basically just local folks. You can see most of the units were marching. There weren't that many automobiles, or there weren't that many motor-driven floats. They tried to keep the parade fairly simple then, but many people, of course, participated, and the whole town always turned out to see the parade. And then these were followed by the homecoming picnic in the afternoon behind the Presbyterian Church under the big oak tree. This was one of our entries back in 1951, for which we won first place in the horse-drawn vehicle category. You see the miniature donkeys that are pulling the float. Next, the driver. And third, that's Mary Nason, daughter of Evangeline Nason Frew. As we were driving down San Fernando Road, I was walking along next to the unit and said to the cousin, "Be sure and wave at the judges when we go by." So she waved at the judges, and the judges cheered and cheered, and I said, "No, you're waving at the boys from the juvenile camp. The judges are in the next truck over." We've always had a good laugh about that. The picture was taken on Newhall Avenue, headed toward San Fernando Road, right at the junction where Walnut Street intersects with Newhall Avenue. This was our 50th anniversary in 1950, and we decided to make a replica of the old shop. The float, as it came down the street, you saw the being drawn by the mules. The driver was Jess Butler. When you float went by, then you could see the inside of the shop, and we had a horse that we had made out of crepe paper that had one leg that you could lift up and put a horseshoe on, and we had an anvil on the float as well. And we had a first prize in our commercial division that year. This was in 1960, and that was the year that I handled publicity for the parade and conned all my friends into putting entries in the parade, so therefore I had to have an entry that year whether I wanted one or not. The cowboy hat that you see is 8 feet tall and 12 feet long. It's mounted on top of a full-size pickup, so that gives you a general idea of how big the thing really was. Newhall Avenue runs the length of the is running parallel to the length of the tennis courts, and if you follow on around the tree line there, that's 13th Street. There was a row of trees down the middle of the elementary school ground at that time, And the students that walked to school came through the gate on 13th Street and walked up under those trees to the school buildings, which are situated about where the camera is right now. The baseball diamond had been there for years and years and years. You can see the trees that were being planted at the time. And coming over to the far side where it says 1933, that's Walnut Street. Behind there, and then over behind Walnut Street is San Fernando Road. Okay, starting on the corner of the picture, there are 3 or 4 automobiles parked along there and a couple of wagons. That is Chestnut Street. The house behind there is on the corner of Chestnut and 8th Street. You notice that in 1932, how few vehicles were in the parade and how many horses and how many horse-drawn wagons. The later parades, of course, every year there were fewer horses and fewer horse-drawn wagons and more automobiles, so therefore we had more of a mechanical parade rather than a natural parade like they had back then. The house over in the background that you're looking at now is the house that Judge Powell lived in on Chestnut Street, the corner of Chestnut and 8th, and later the Schaefer family lived there. Frank Schaefer, who was a custodian at the Saugus School for many, many, many years.
Well, Tom, I'd like to thank you for having us to your home and for sharing your 4th of July memories with us, and your photographs are great photographs. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome, Phil, anytime.
Now, you told me one other thing. You said that after the parade ended, the whole town partied somewhere. Is that right?
Well, there was the Lions Club had a deep pit barbecue out at Saxonia Park in Placerita Canyon. The parade actually disbanded usually at the corner of 12th Street and Spruce Street or San Fernando Road at that time, with the on the corner was the one side of the street was the old jail and the other side of the street was the American Legion Hall.
Right.
And then everybody went home and got ready to go to the barbecue,
Okay.
which started, well, I think a lot of people went to the barbecue before the parade was over because it was so darn hot always.
Do you think the park is still there?
I haven't been out there for years, but I'd sure like to go out and look.
What do you say we take a drive and see if we can find Saxonia Park?
You're on, let's go.
Okay.
This is basically what the old Saxonia Park used to look like. The grounds were all dirt. There were picnic tables. The little lattice house had picnic tables underneath it. That's where we used to eat. And the little building in the background was the kitchen building that they used to serve the food from. The little lattice pavilion that you're looking at had picnic tables underneath it. And the building to the left, the large building to the left, was the at one time was a dance hall that had a stage in one end. That's where they used to have the gave the awards for the parade. The Lions Club for many, many years sponsored the pit barbecue. Out behind the dance hall building was where they had the where they dug the pit and the rocks and the coals and everything, and started the, I think they started the fire the day before, early in the morning, and then the night before they put the meat in, and then the meat was served the following noon when they dug it up.
Was there a large German population here that
No,
this would support a...
No, they built this park out here,
Mm-hmm.
and they would have, I guess, German groups from the city would come out here and
Oh, okay.
and have their
right.
barbecues and stuff. But it was as I say, I'm sure they had, every year they had their big Oktoberfest thing out here, and they had crossbow, shooting the crossbow.
Well, Tom, I'm glad we found Saxonia Park. It's still here. It's still a part of New Hall. It's still a part of your memories, isn't it?
And it's so much more beautiful than it was then. It was a dusty hole out here at the time with no banks along the stream, an unpaved parking lot with lots of weeds.
But these trees were here, and that's why you were here, right?
They've planted a lot of other trees and
Right.
shrubs, but it's absolutely beautiful.
That's great.
The Foursquare Church has done a good job.
They have,
A
yeah.
very, very nice job. It's a beautiful big piece of property, too.
It is. Well, listen, I'd like to thank you for sharing your 4th of July celebrations and memories with us today. This has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a number of old photos taken from past 4th of Julys that I would like to share with you now. July 4th, 1908 at Newhall Park, which in those days was at the junction of Newhall Avenue and the South Fork of the Santa Clara River. Here's another photo, July 4th, 1908. That's Tom Frew's Uncle Jim on the far right in the straw hat. And still another photo, July 4th, 1908, Independence Day. Charles Kingsbury leads the sheriff's posse in the 4th of July parade, 1934. Charles Kingsbury was a fixture in the 4th of July parades over the years. Here he is in front of the Presbyterian Church at Market and Newhall Avenue. And here he is on San Fernando Road in front of the 5, 10, and 25-cent store. Another photo taken on San Fernando Road, 4th of July, 1934. That's the Motor Stage Cafe on the corner of Market and San Fernando Road. In the background on the left is the old Newhall Pharmacy. Just as today, local businesses like to sponsor a float in the parade. The Newhall Ice Company, which of course is still doing business on 6th and Railroad Avenue, sponsored this float in 1934. Admiral Byrd must have been big at this time. Little America, Newhall Ice Company. Here's a young lady posed on her horse in front of the float. The Newhall Garage went to a lot of trouble putting this entry together. The M&N Market is today called Trey's Market. Dom's Pharmacy had something called Benzine Farley written on its entry. That year, a prize was awarded to the Newhall Ice Company for their Admiral Byrd float. People put on their Western costumes in keeping with Newhall tradition. There's plenty of flag waving for Newhall's 4th of July parade. The 4th of July parade is still a big event in our community's life, and I've got some recent pictures I'd like to share with you now.
Make our old Sherman Blackfield welcome. Sir, God bless.
Sheriff's Mounted Patrol is glad to have us here to attend to the places that we really need those folks. Hurricane Harbor. Enjoy a day of family water play at Hurricane Harbor. Perfect for this hot weather. Or do some white knuckling next door at Magic Mountain, where Superman will make the 100-mile-per-hour escape later this summer.
Hey, they sound pretty good.
What happened to this float? There. This float.
Enthusiasm, a lot of energy, a lot of work decorating. Can you pull a plow? You got it. So that's probably how it was done in years past. More over motorcycles or bikes will take a risk ahead.
I'd like to thank Tom Frew and Leon Warden for coming on our show. I'd like to thank my camera operators, Denise Scorza and Casey Scorza, and I would like to thank you for watching us. Until next time, this is Philip Scorza for Points of Interest.